Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. If elections were to be held in this country today, Raila Odinga would be declared the next president of the Republic of Kenya, according to the latest opinion poll by Tifa. Raila Odinga would get 42%, while William Ruto would get 39%. And William Ruto has delivered a strong message to his supporters. And the message is very clear. Ignore those opinion polls because they are sponsored by my opponents. I want us to look at why William Ruto is advising his supporters to ignore the opinion polls. Because for those who've been following the politics of this country, for a very long time, William Ruto was always leading in these opinion polls. By that time, Raila Odinga had not declared his interest of running. Kalonzo Musyoka had not declared. Basically, William Ruto was running alone by that particular time. And when Raila Odinga declared his interest, the graph started coming down. I remember in April, there was an opinion poll which was conducted by Radio Africa. In that opinion poll, just April here, in that opinion poll, William Ruto was ahead by 46%, while Raila Odinga was at 41%. That was Radio Africa. And then in June, that was in April, then in June, Radio Africa conducted another opinion poll. And that was the first opinion poll where Raila Odinga led. In that opinion poll, I'm talking of Radio Africa, in that opinion poll, Raila Odinga's figures were at 44%, while William Ruto was actually 38%. Remember, in April, Ruto was ahead with 46%. In June, after Raila Odinga had declared, Raila Odinga was now at 44%, Ruto was at 38%. And if you study the latest opinion poll by Tifa, in May, Raila Odinga was still ahead of Ruto by 39%. Ruto in May was at 35%. But if you look at the latest opinion poll, Raila is at 42%, Ruto is at 39%, which means the undecided also made some choices. But why are opinion polls important? I want us to look at why opinion polls are always important. Because opinion polls can actually be sponsored the opinion polls can actually be sponsored. Let's say William Ruto is sponsoring the opinion polls just to see how he's performing. Raila Odinga can sponsor opinion polls just to discourage William Ruto supporters. Why are opinion polls important? Because I want us to look at why Ruto is actually advising his supporters to ignore those opinion polls, while he never advised them before. Let me put this disclaimer. Personally, I believe in opinion polls, but I know opinion polls can always be used, can be manipulated by opponents. But why are opinion polls important? The first reason why opinion polls are always important is that they shape opinions. You know, in this country today, for example, we have undecided voters. Now, there are so many undecided voters, and some of these undecided voters would make a choice based on the opinion polls. So Raila Odinga can conduct an opinion poll, or Ruto can conduct an opinion poll just to figure out what do voters really want? What message do they want to hear? Amongst my supporters, who do they normally like? So that when they go to rallies, the messages are designed that way. So opinion polls are used to shape opinion. So if Raila Odinga is being projected to win, there are people who are undecided who will then decide, hii kitu vile tunaona Raila Odinga is going to win. So they'll make that choice. Number two, the deep state can also use the opinion polls to prepare the minds of Kenyans. And I want to give you a typical case of the 2013 election, when the tyranny of numbers was unleashed on Kenyans. That tyranny of numbers was very clear that as long as Kikuyus and Kalenjins are together, even if Raila Odinga were to get votes from across the country. Still, there was no way he was going to win. Now, the moment Mutahi Ngunyi came up with that kind of narrative, it disoriented the supporters. So when the government then decided to register voters, what happened was that the kits which were used to register voters were skewed. In Jubilee strongholds, kits were functioning and there were many. In ODM or NASA, was it called that time, the kits were few, and the way they were being distributed was so funny to an extent that they would announce that this week the kits will be in this particular constituency. You go to that constituency, you don't get them. So that by the time Kenyans were registered, the news flash was that William Ruto's stronghold, President Uhuru Kenyatta's stronghold, had registered more voters than others. And then it was followed by subsequent opinion polls, which consistently showed Uhuru Kenyatta winning. So the deep state prepared Kenyans so that when Uhuru was declared the president, of course, there were cries, but most people believed that he won. That could be the thing which they are doing today. So that they are preparing the Kenyans, especially UDA supporters, that there is no way William Ruto is going to win this election. So that's a possibility. The third importance of opinion poll is that they can also be used genuinely. So let's say William Ruto can decide to sponsor an opinion poll, or Raila Odinga can decide to sponsor an opinion poll, that how am I performing in Mount Kenya? How am I performing in Coast? And what are some of the issues in the coastal region? So all these presidential aspirants, they're conducting these opinion polls and they get them. In fact, I've been suspecting that William Ruto conducted certain opinion polls, and from those opinion polls, he decided to change his strategy of campaigning. William Ruto has changed his strategy of campaigning. You no longer see majority of those who used to accompany him in most of his rallies. And even the areas he's currently focusing on are areas he never used to focus on before. So they conduct these opinion polls to understand, like, if, for example, Raila Odinga is not performing in Mount Kenya, then he will understand why is he not performing in Mount Kenya. Is it because of Martha Karua? Is it because of Murathe? And if it's because of Murathe, then people like Murathe are then told to take a backseat. At some point, Murathe was being accused, for example, of so many things in the larger Mount Kenya region, that he was the reason why Raila Odinga could not penetrate. So what President Uhuru Kenyatta did was that Murathe was then given lighter duties. Then he was now withdrawn from the campaign, and then other people came on board. When Raila Odinga nominated Martha Karua, and he wanted to go with Martha Karua to the ground, an opinion poll conducted confirmed that it was not the right time for Raila Odinga to go with Martha Karua to the ground, that Martha Karua needed to go alone. That was now the intelligence report. So sometimes opinion polls can be used genuinely to understand the voter, what the voter is thinking, the message they want to hear, where you are doing, what you are doing wrong. So Ruto and Raila can actually use these opinion polls to gauge if they are genuine. And lastly, opinion polls can also be used for messaging. So you say that Jubilee government has failed. Why has it failed? So you list those. Then you release them. Then Uhuru Kenyatta, as the president, will figure out, okay, most Kenyans are not happy with the state of economy. They're not happy with the high cost of living. They're not happy with this and that. So that when the president now gets an opportunity to speak to Kenyans, then he'll try to adjust. That's exactly what presidential aspirants are also doing with these opinion polls. Opinion polls are conducted in this country at this moment by so many aspirants just for their messaging. But why is William Ruto advising his supporters to ignore the opinion polls if opinion polls are that important? In my view, William Ruto is advising his supporters to ignore the opinion polls because of several reasons. Number one, the first reason is that William Ruto is actually laying the ground to reject the results. I can bet William Ruto is likely not to accept the results of the upcoming general election. So if opinion polls are being churned out, and in these opinion polls, like tomorrow, I know there are going to be headlines that Raila Odinga is winning, and these opinion polls are consistently showing that Raila Odinga is leading. What do you tell your supporters? that the opinion polls are cooked, that you are ahead of them in manifesto. How do you gauge that you are ahead of someone on manifesto? That you are ahead of them in messaging. How do you gauge that your messaging is better? That is ahead of Azimio on everything. So that when elections will be done, and Raila Odinga, for example, emerges the winner, his supporters will not believe. They'll say, okay, that was the work of that opinion poll. And therefore, they are going to create the ground to reject those results. In fact, one of the things Raila Odinga has been doing, if you ask me, is that the first thing he was doing was to ensure that IBC follows the law. Once the law is followed, then he's trying to make Ruto accept that IBC is the best at the moment and defend IBC. So when they started talking about all those other issues about ballot boxes printed in Uganda and the rest, William Ruto then had to come out and defend IBC. How many days are left to the next election? So after defending IBC, can he come and withdraw those statements? So the thing is, William Ruto is disputing these opinion results because he's laying the grounds to reject those results. Number two, which is also important, is that William Ruto is assuring his supporters. He wants them to have that confidence. If, for example, William Ruto were to surrender that enyewe, that opinion polls is bad, it's bad on us, we can do this, his supporters will be like, why are we even campaigning? Ujama was just 21%, and by now is 42%, and we are still 39, actually going down. Yeah, so hii kitu imeenda. So he needs to assure his supporters, and that's exactly what the deputy president is achieving by telling them to ignore those opinion polls. Number three, I think the deputy president is also sending a message to the deep state that in case you are using these opinion polls to try and shape the opinions, to try and prepare my supporters to accept the results, I'm not going to allow that. I am going to tell them that those opinion polls are not credible, that they are doctored, that we are leading. So the deep state, I don't know what they'll do, but maybe another opinion poll will now show even a wider gap, so that as he complains, the gap is wider. The truth of the matter is that Raila Odinga at some point picked up so well, and he was ahead of Ruto. But as things stand today, I think there's a bit of laxity in Raila Odinga's campaign. Although the ground is okay, but there's a bit of laxity. Number four, I think William Ruto is trying to shield his camp from losing the undecided. There's a percentage of undecided. They are yet to decide whether to vote for Ruto or whether to vote for Raila. Majority of these people will be persuaded by these opinion polls. So if opinion polls are showing that Raila is winning, then majority of them will now go and win with Raila Odinga. People like associating with winning. If Ruto is losing, then they'll say there is no need of casting our votes to a person who is losing. Because if anything, even if he does what, he won't succeed. So the idea behind William Ruto telling his supporters to ignore is that he's targeting the undecided. Remember, there was an opinion poll which was conducted by Sonko, where people were just asking yes, 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 no. I don't know why he didn't put it as a poll so that Kenyans could vote. William Ruto was leading that opinion poll on Mike Sonko. And so many people had actually voted, over 40%. Over 40,000 people by the time I checked. Of course, you can't just scroll all the 40, but at some point it was Ruto, Raila, Ruto. Ruto were so many. So they could use such kind of cases to persuade the undecided to vote for Ruto. And lastly is the turnout. The mere fact that Ruto has told his people that ignore these opinion polls is enough grounds for them to be persuaded to turn out in large numbers to vote. By assuring them that the opinion polls are fake, we are leading, we are ahead in all aspects, these people will be persuaded, in my view, to turn out in large numbers to vote for William Ruto. So William Ruto is actually looking at turnout, the percentage which will turn out to vote for him. I don't know what you think, but that's my take. In case you're watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue. Thank you guys for your continued support. Without the support, this channel cannot be where it is. Thank you guys, and please may you have a good day. Bye-bye.